introduce to you today our keynote speaker, who's most likely not a stranger to most of us here. He's a local guy born in Paris, Texas, not too far away. He attended Texas A&M University and graduated in 1954 with his bachelor's degree. Then he received an officer's commission in the United States Air Force. He earned his pilot's wings in 1955. He received an honorable discharge from active duty in 1957, but he continued to serve as a pilot in the Air Force Reserve until 1961. He then continued his education at Texas A&M, and he earned his master's degree in education in 1958. In 1963, he entered the banking profession, and by 1972 was promoted to the president of the Elgin National Bank. In 1973, he moved to Paris, Texas, and became president of the Paris Bank of Texas. In 1985, he became the president of the Texas American Bank of McKinney, Texas. In 1996, he returned, and he now resides at Lake Cypress Springs, right here in Mount Vernon. In 2003, he was named one of the 50 most impactful people in the 20th century on Paris and Lamar County. In 2013, he was named an outstanding alumnus of the Texas A&M University system. He's been named a lifetime member of the Salvation Army Advisory Board. He's been married to the former Shirley Casey of Bryan, Texas for 62 years. Somebody needs that. Together they have 2 sons and 2 daughters, 13 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren. And he is currently a Sunday school teacher at the First Baptist Church in Mount Vernon, where Brother Pepper Courier told me he does a great job. I'm sure he does. So please help me welcome to this stage a devoted family man, a highly accomplished business person, and a veteran Air Force pilot, Mr. E. Ridley Briggs.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Emma. That was beautiful. You have reminded me that this is my country, land of the free. And it would not have been that way had not God so richly blessed us. Actually, I started putting my thoughts together for this speech over a month ago. And then earlier this week, my wife and I went to see a movie, Hacksaw Ridge. I have to tell you that my emotions are still a little bit out of sync. As I think of war and those that came home. We call them veterans. I have made a few speeches that have affected me emotionally. One was to a large group of people who had gathered at the First Baptist Church in Paris, Texas, to pay their respects to the families of those 12 kids that were killed on the Texas A&M bonfire stack tragedy at 2:42 a.m., November the 18th, 1999. Another was at a service following the 9/11 attacks on our country by Muslim terrorists. I have made 35 speeches to A&M musters, honoring students of Texas A&M who have passed away in the previous year. All of those have affected me emotionally. I've never made a speech that has affected me as emotionally as this one today. Not so much because of what I am about to say to you, it's to whom I am saying it. I am not sure sometimes about how to approach a subject like this. You see, you have heard it said that freedom is not free, that someone has to pay the price. You are that someone. You are a select group of people. You are a unique people because you represent the land of the free and the home of the brave better than anyone else can possibly do. You stepped up when our country needed you. And like the prophet Isaiah, you said, "Here am I, send me." You served in the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard. You served for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 20 years or more. The point is that you served. You learned at an early age that this country is worth fighting for, worth dying for. For me, that willingness to die for my country came from my mom. I can still remember that certificate she had on our wall at home stating that she was a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. I grew up knowing the names of great patriots like George Washington, Paul Revere, Patrick Henry, Benjamin Franklin. Mom told me about Nathan Hale being captured by the British and being scheduled to be hanged for spying. When he was asked, "Is there anything that you would like to say before you die?" he said, "Yes, I regret that I have but one life to give for my country." She told me about Patrick Henry making that speech at St. John's Church in Richmond, Virginia, and closing it with, "I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death." Before I started the school, Mom made me learn those precious words at the beginning of our Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, those being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. She told me that the word unalienable means impossible to take away from. In this country of the USA, I was born with life, liberty, and the right to pursue happiness. And those things cannot be taken away from me. Although we were 3 hours away from San Antonio, she took me to the Alamo several times. We talked about Fannin and Bowie and Crockett. I learned about Commander William B. Travis drawing that line in the sand with his sword and explaining to his men that if you want to try to escape, you can stay on one side of this line. But those who crossed over the line were destined to die for what was to become the great state of Texas. My battle cry when playing cowboys and Indians as a youngster was always, "Remember the Alamo!" I was 8 years old when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor in 1941. My parents made sure that I knew what was going on, and I became familiar with places like Dunkirk, Pointe du Hoc, Bastogne, Corregidor, Bataan, Iwo Jima. I learned that our President Franklin D. Roosevelt wanted desperately to retaliate quickly. And a few months after Pearl Harbor, he approved a mission of 16 B-25s to take off of an aircraft carrier named the Hornet and bomb the Japanese mainland. All 16 of those B-25s dropped their payloads and crashed their planes in China, proving to the Japanese, "You misjudged us. we are coming after you. I wanted desperately to fly airplanes. And I became familiar with P-51s and P-38s and B-17s. When I went to college, I chose the Air ROTC. When I graduated 4 years later, I went immediately into the United States Air Force Flight Training Program. By that time, we had jet fighters. And that is exactly what I wanted. I can still remember being in that jet the first time and taking that throttle to the full position. I never imagined such power. And now I was in complete control of the most power I had ever seen. Even though there was no war to fight when I got my wings, I was trained and would have gladly fought had there been a place to go. When I got my wings, I learned a poem by John Gillespie McGee. He was a fighter pilot in World War I. And in 1917, the fighter of the day was a biplane called the Jenny. It had a maximum speed of 75 miles per hour. He called his poem High Flight. Here are the words. Oh, I have slipped the surly bonds of earth and danced the skies on laughter's silvered wings. Sunward I've climbed and joined the tumbling mirth of sun-split clouds, done 100 things you've not dreamed of, wheeled and soared and swung high in the sunlit silence. I've chased the shouting winds aloft and hurled my eager craft through footless halls of air. Up, up the long, delirious, burning blue. I've topped the windswept heights with easy grace, where never lark nor even eagle flew. And while with silent lifting mind I've trod the untrespassed sanctity of space, reached out my hand and touched the face of God. Obviously, flying had become an obsession to me. When I got out of college, when I got out of the Air Force, I went back to college, got another degree, and then went out and found a job where I could take care of my wife and family. I didn't really think a lot about being a veteran, even though I followed the Vietnam War very closely. I was nearly 40 years old, and my country seemed to have plenty of pilots. It was actually several years later. Vietnam was over, and I was at a church. It was very near to the 4th of July. It was a large church, and the song director announced that he would like for everyone to be seated. Then he said that everyone was going to sing each of the military service anthems, and when we sang the anthem of the branch of the military that we had served in, he asked that we stand and be recognized. When we got to the Air Force hymn, everyone in the church started singing. Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. I choked up. I couldn't sing. I looked around the church and there weren't very many of us standing. I was part of a small, select group of warriors that at one time had dedicated their lives to keeping the skies free of enemy aircraft. The church was recognizing me as a veteran. They didn't care whether I fought in a war or not. They didn't care if I'd ever been wounded or not. They didn't care if I had any medals or not. They just wanted to recognize me and thank me for being willing to die to keep them safe. I love the new attitude that now exists toward our military. It's people like Bob Kerr that have made this happen. I was at a Jason's Deli in Dallas, Texas, a few years ago. And it was about noon, and there was a long line of people to order food. I noticed 4 young Army soldiers in line in front of me. 2 young men, 2 young women. One white, 2 black, and 1 Hispanic. All 4 had on army fatigues. As the 4 of them got to the clerk to order their food, I noticed an older man in front of me step out of line, go down to the cashier, take out a credit card, and give it to the cashier. I knew exactly what he was doing. And when the 4 young soldiers got down to the point to pay for their lunch, the bill had been paid. Later, I went by the man's table and thanked him for his generosity and his patriotism. He said that it was his privilege, that he was a veteran. I don't think that sort of thing is uncommon now. And if you wear a cap that shows the branch of military that you served in, you have had someone come up to you and say, "Thank you for your service. Thanks for being a veteran." I want to tell you about my friend Clarence Sasser, a black man who I met at an awards ceremony honoring distinguished alumni from Texas A&M University. I was blown away with the honor to shake this man's hand because I knew his story. He graduated from a high school near Houston, Texas, and moved into the city in 1967. Because he had little money, he had to work to pay for school and living expenses. He was not a full-time student, so he soon found himself drafted into the Army. With no choice in the matter, he became a combat medic. And it didn't take long for him to be aboard a helicopter headed for the Mekong Delta in Vietnam. His chopper landed to assist a unit under heavy fire. Within the first few minutes, Clarence determined that there were over 30 casualties. He had been trained to help when possible, but to always remember that he had to take care of himself as well as those around him. But without hesitation, he began running toward those voices needing help. Some were yelling, "Doc!" Some were yelling, "Mama!" The rice paddy was filled with small arms fire, rifle fire, machine gun, and rocket fire. After helping one man to safety, Clarence was painfully wounded in the left shoulder by fragments of an exploding rocket. Refusing medical attention, he ran through a barrage of rocket and automatic weapons fire as he gave aid to hurting servicemen. When wounds totally immobilized both of his legs, he dragged himself through the rice paddy to a wounded soldier over 100 yards away, even though he was in great pain and extremely weak from loss of blood. After treating the wounded soldier, he reached another group of soldiers and encouraged them to move some 200 yards to a safer environment. When they got there, he attended their wounds for over 5 hours until they were evacuated. A helicopter was able to evacuate those soldiers still alive, and Clarence was placed in an Army hospital where he fully recovered after several months. For his selfless action in the rice paddy of the Mekong Delta, my friend was awarded the Medal of Honor. So why do I close with Clarence Sasser? Because in a way, he is you. The vast majority of you never had to go through the horror and pain that Clarence experienced. In fact, you may wonder, as I, could I have done what Clarence did? Yes. You would have done the same thing. And in a sense, You were there. You were trained. You believed in a cause and you were willing to die for that cause if called upon. You were part of the greatest military power on earth, and no one could take you down. Thank you for your service to this great nation. Thank you for that crisp salute. Thank you for an attitude that serves as an example of love for our country. Thank you for that tear in your eye as you look with pride at Old Glory, the flag that represents life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you for being a veteran. I salute you.